The rain had stopped just as the truck pulled off the old county road. Beyond the windshield, the world was painted in wet shades of brown and gold. Cornfields, half harvested, the distant silhouette of maple trees, their leaves turned the color of dying fire. Evelyn Turner sat quietly, watching as her husband, Jack, killed the engine. The silence that followed wasn't comfortable. It was thick, like an old quilt heavy with dust and forgotten years. "Well," Jack said, forcing a small smile, "there she is." The farmhouse stood at the edge of the hill, white paint peeling, porch sagging, shutters missing. To anyone else it might have looked like a ruin, but to Evelyn it was memory itself. The place where they'd spent their honeymoon, the place where their son, Sam, had taken his first steps, and the place where everything had begun to fall apart. Evelyn got out of the truck, her boots sinking slightly into the soft earth. The air smelled like wet hay and nostalgia. She ran her fingers along the porch railing, the wood rough and splintered under her touch. Jack joined her. "Roof's worse than I remember," he said, squinting upward. "You said that 10 years ago, too," she replied softly. He chuckled, a sound that felt like it had been locked away for years. "Guess I never fixed it then." They stood side by side, the silence stretching again. It had been 6 months since Evelyn had moved out. 6 months of quiet dinners, unanswered texts, and therapy sessions that both attended but rarely spoke during. And yet, when the letter from Jack's late father's lawyer arrived, "The farmhouse is yours, both of you. Renovate it or sell it, but do it together," they'd agreed. Perhaps because it felt easier than saying goodbye. Inside, the house smelled of old wood and faint mildew. Dust motes swirled in the air like ghosts, catching light from the cracked window panes. Evelyn's heart tightened at the sight of the fireplace, blackened and cold. "Same couch," she murmured. "Same curtains. Same arguments," Jack said quietly. She looked at him, surprised. He smiled, but it was tired, apologetic. "Maybe this place will give us a fresh start," he said. Evelyn didn't answer. They spent the rest of the day unpacking supplies, paint cans, brushes, tarps, toolboxes. By evening, they were too tired to argue, too worn out to think. Jack cooked spaghetti on a portable stove, and they ate sitting on overturned buckets in the empty living room. Outside, the cicadas began their night song. "Remember when Sam used to chase fireflies here?" Evelyn said softly. Jack nodded. He used to say they were little stars that fell down for him. A long pause. "I miss that sound," she added, not meaning the cicadas. Jack looked at her then, really looked at her, and saw not just the woman he'd fallen in love with 20 years ago, but the one he'd let drift away. "So do I," he said quietly. They finished their meal in silence. That night, Evelyn couldn't sleep. She walked out to the porch, wrapped in an old quilt. The moon hung low over the cornfields. The wind carried faint echoes, laughter, the sound of a young boy running barefoot through the grass. Jack joined her a few minutes later, holding 2 mugs of coffee. "Couldn't sleep either," he said. "Too many memories in this place," she replied. He leaned against the railing beside her. "Maybe that's what we need, to face them." Evelyn turned to him, her voice trembling just slightly. "And if we do, what if facing them only proves we've lost everything we had?" Jack stared into the distance, his breath misting in the cold. "Then maybe we'll at least know for sure." The morning sunlight spilled through the broken blinds, scattering pale gold across the dusty floorboards. Evelyn woke to the smell of coffee, strong and black, and the sound of hammering. She found Jack on the porch, fixing a loose railing. His shirt clung to his back, and a streak of paint ran down his arm. For a moment, she just watched him, The rhythm of his movements, the quiet determination in his face. It reminded her of the man he used to be, before the layoffs, before the silence settled between them like fog. "Morning," she said finally. He looked up, surprised, and smiled. "Didn't think you'd wake up before 9. "I couldn't sleep," she said, stepping out into the cold. "Too many ghosts in this place." Jack wiped his hands on his jeans. "Well, maybe if we fix enough of it, the ghosts will leave too." She didn't believe that, but she picked up a brush anyway. For the next few hours, they worked side by side, scraping off layers of flaking paint, each stroke uncovering not just wood, but history. There were initials carved into the porch post, J+E, 2003. Evelyn traced them with her fingers, smiling faintly. "Remember that night?" Jack asked, looking over her shoulder. "How could I forget? You proposed right there after dinner, said you'd build me a life right here." "I guess I never finished building it," he said softly. The words hung in the air between them, uncomfortably honest. Evelyn didn't respond. She just went back to painting, her eyes stinging from more than the wind. By afternoon, the air had turned warm. The smell of fresh paint and sawdust filled the house. Jack worked upstairs, pulling down old wallpaper while Evelyn cleaned the kitchen. She found a dusty box in one of the cabinets, labeled Sam's Things. Her heart stopped. Inside were little relics of childhood, a toy truck, a baseball glove, a faded photograph of the three of them smiling in front of the same porch they were now repairing. But beneath those things was a folded piece of paper. A crayon drawing, stick figures holding hands under a crooked house with the words, "Mom, Dad, plus me equals home." Evelyn sat on the kitchen floor and cried quietly. She didn't hear Jack come in until his hand rested gently on her shoulder. "I didn't know that box was still here," he said softly. "I didn't either." For a moment, neither spoke. The quiet between them was heavy, full of things unsaid. Finally, Jack crouched beside her. "Evie, I know I wasn't there enough. I let work get in the way. I thought providing was enough, but it wasn't. I see that now." Her voice trembled just slightly. "It wasn't just you, Jack. I shut down too. After Sam left for college, it was like the house got too big for just us. I didn't know how to fill the silence." Jack reached for her hand, hesitant at first. She didn't pull away. They sat there for a while, surrounded by dust and memory. It wasn't forgiveness yet, but it was something close. That evening, the rain came again, sudden and fierce. Thunder rolled across the open fields and water leaked through the holes in the roof. "Damn it," Jack muttered, rushing to place buckets under the drips. Evelyn laughed in spite of herself, a soft, tired laugh that filled the old kitchen. "What's funny?" he asked, half smiling. "Just this, us, trying to fix everything with tape and buckets." He grinned. "It's what we do best, isn't it?" She looked at him then, and something warm flickered inside her. Not the full flame it once was, but maybe, just maybe a spark. Later that night, they sat together on the floor with wine poured into mismatched mugs. Outside, the rain softened to a whisper. "You ever think about what it would have been like if we never left this place?" Evelyn asked. Jack thought for a long time. "Sometimes, but I think we had to leave to realize what we lost." She nodded, her eyes distant. "Maybe coming back was the only way to find it again." He turned to her. "Do you want to? Find it again?" she asked. He nodded. Evelyn looked at the old walls, the scars in the wood, the flickering candlelight between them, and then she met his eyes. "Yes," she whispered. "I do." The next morning broke gray and cold. Mist curled along the fence posts, and the air smelled faintly of rain-soaked earth. Jack was already awake, climbing into the attic with a flashlight and a crowbar. The roof still needed patching, and he'd promised Evelyn he'd check it before the next storm rolled in. Evelyn, still in her robe, watched him disappear up the narrow steps. She smiled faintly. The sight of him up there, determined, focused, reminded her of years ago when he built Sam's treehouse by hand. Back then, he used to whistle while he worked. Now, it was silent. She went back to the kitchen, poured herself a cup of coffee, and began sorting through old letters on the table. There were receipts from Jack's father's estate, old mortgage papers, and a yellowing stack of photographs. She picked one up. Jack, holding baby Sam in his arms, laughing as Evelyn leaned into them. For a brief second, she could almost feel that moment again. The smell of the baby powder, the sound of Sam's giggle, the way Jack's eyes used to shine when he looked at her. Then a loud crash from upstairs broke her trance. "Jack?" she called out. No answer. Heart racing, she hurried to the attic stairs. Jack was crouched beside an old wooden trunk, dust swirling around him like smoke. The lid had broken open, and a mess of papers, envelopes, and photographs spilled across the floor. "You okay?" she asked, climbing up carefully. He didn't look at her. "Yeah, I just found something." Evelyn knelt beside him. The light from the small window cut across his face, pale, strained. He held a letter in his hands, the edges brittle and brown with age. "It's from my dad, dated a month before he died." Evelyn frowned. "You never mentioned he wrote to you." "I didn't know he did." Jack's voice cracked slightly. "He must have hidden it here." He handed it to her. Evelyn hesitated, then unfolded the paper carefully. The writing was shaky, but legible. "Jack, if you're reading this, I'm gone. I want you to know that the farm isn't just land. It's our story. Yours, mine, and hers. I built it for your mother. When she got sick, I worked myself into the ground trying to save what we had. Don't do what I did. Don't let pride make you lose the person you love. A house can be rebuilt. A heart, sometimes, can't." Evelyn's throat tightened as she finished reading. Jack's hands were trembling. "I spent years angry at him," he said quietly. "I blamed him for everything that went wrong. I thought he cared more about this land than about me or Mom, but he was just trying not to lose her." She looked at him with tears in her eyes. "Just like you tried not to lose me." He shook his head. "No, Evie, I did lose you because I made the same mistake. I let my pride get bigger than my love." She reached out, touching his face, a gesture so small, yet so full of forgiveness it made him close his eyes. "Maybe now," she said softly, "you can forgive him, and maybe we can forgive each other too." Jack nodded, unable to speak. He pulled her close, and for the first time in years, she didn't feel like she was holding on to something broken. She felt like she was holding something being rebuilt. Later that evening, they sat on the porch again, watching the fog lift from the fields. The sun broke through at last, a faint golden promise after days of rain. Evelyn handed Jack a cup of coffee. "You know," she said quietly, "maybe this house didn't need us to fix it. Maybe it needed to fix us." Jack smiled. "Guess your ghosts were right." She laughed, the sound soft and full of life. "Maybe they were just waiting for us to come home." He reached for her hand and held it tightly. For once, it didn't feel like holding on to the past. It felt like holding the future. By early October, the farmhouse was almost finished. The paint on the porch gleamed in the autumn sun, new glass shone in the windows, and the wind chimes Evelyn found in the attic tinkled softly in the breeze. It wasn't perfect. The floor still creaked in the hallway, and one shutter leaned a little to the left, but it was theirs. Evelyn stood in the kitchen, hanging a photo on the freshly painted wall, a picture of the three of them from years ago. The baby in the picture had chubby cheeks and Jack's wide grin. "Perfect spot," Jack said from behind her, holding a cup of coffee. She turned, smiling. "You really think so?" He nodded. "This house finally looks like home again." Evelyn looked around. The sunlight on the floor, the scent of baked bread cooling on the counter, the faint hum of country radio playing in the background. She nodded. "It does. And it feels like home again, too." Jack set the coffee down. "You know, Sam texted me this morning. He's driving down from Cleveland, wants to see the place before we sell it." She blinked. "Sell it?" He smiled gently. "We don't have to, but that was the plan, remember? The lawyer said we could either renovate or sell." Evelyn looked around again. The thought of letting it go made her chest tighten. "Let's see what he says," she murmured. That afternoon, the sound of a car engine rolled down the gravel drive. Evelyn stepped onto the porch just as Sam climbed out of the car. Taller than she remembered. His hair longer, his face more grown. "Mom!" She rushed to him, wrapping her arms around his shoulders, tears slipping down her cheeks. "Oh, Sam, look at you!" Jack joined them, clapping his son on the back. "You made it, buddy." Sam looked around the property, eyes wide. "Wow, you two actually fixed it up. I didn't think you'd pull it off." Jack grinned. "We didn't either." They showed him around, the repainted rooms, the porch swing, the attic, where the old letter now sat framed on the wall. Sam listened quietly as his parents told stories, not just about the renovation, but about the years they had spent learning how to start over. When they reached his old bedroom, Sam smiled softly at the single rocket ship decal still clinging to the wall. "You kept it?" Evelyn nodded. "Some memories deserve to stay." He looked between them, his expression thoughtful. "You know, for a long time I didn't think you guys would ever talk again. I'm really glad you did." Jack placed an arm around Evelyn's shoulders. "We didn't just talk," he said with a small smile. "We listened this time." That evening, the three of them sat on the porch as the sun dipped below the fields. The sky turned amber and lilac, the kind of beauty that always made silence feel sacred. Sam leaned back in the chair. "You're really gonna sell it?" Evelyn and Jack exchanged a glance. "I don't think so," she said finally. "Not anymore." Jack nodded. "Your granddad used to say this land holds stories. I think we've still got more to tell." Sam grinned. "Then I'll bring my kids here someday, when I have them." Evelyn laughed. "Not too soon, I hope." They sat in comfortable quiet for a long time. Fireflies blinked in the tall grass, and the old windmill creaked in the distance. The world felt full again. When Sam went inside to call a friend, Jack reached for Evelyn's hand. "You know," he said softly, "I think your ghosts finally left." She smiled. "No, they didn't. They just stopped haunting us." He kissed her forehead, slow and tender. "I don't ever want to leave again, Evie." She rested her head against his shoulder. "Then don't." The last of the sunlight fell across the fields, gilding the old house in gold. Inside, the walls still whispered with memories, laughter, tears, forgiveness, but now they sounded like music. The farmhouse, after all these years, had done what it was meant to do. It had held a family together long enough for them to find their way back home.